Hello and welcome to another video. Today it's gonna be a Q&A video. I get so many questions every day or every week via email or on YouTube comments or via WhatsApp or whatnot. So if you like this format and have some more questions you like to have answered this way, just let me know. And you can write under this video your questions and I will answer them. Depends on how many questions there are. Maybe every week, maybe every month. So I just try to answer 10, 15 questions maybe, so the video doesn't get too long. And so I can write also down the questions there are in the description, and so you know exactly where to look for them. So let's start with the first one. The first one is quite common. What alignment is recommended for street and track? This depends what you want to have. I would say for street, I would not go beyond 3.5 degrees of camber. So maybe 3 degrees of camber, and front and back toe out. If you like the car to be a little bit playful, then you can have 1.0 millimeters toe out at the back per wheel. You can have less toe out, and then the car is gonna be a little bit more stable. If you like to have a really loose back or a really loose rear end, you can just use more toe out, but I wouldn't go much beyond, or I wouldn't even go beyond 1.0 millimeters per wheel. I use toe out at the front and at the back because it makes the car behave like I like it, and a lot of my clients where I set the car up, I most likely for the road do 0.5 millimeters of toe out at all wheels. That works mostly very well. I would recommend 2.5 to 3 degrees camber at the front and up to 2.5 degrees camber at the back. You need camber bolts obviously for the front and the back to set that up. You can also use that with stock wheels. That even works with them, and that transforms the car dramatically when you have more camber at the front or more camber than stock. So 2.5 to 3 degrees of camber, negative obviously, works very well. For track, you can go even more extreme. I would recommend 3.5 degrees, maybe even a little bit more. I wouldn't go too much, but about that. And as said, 1.0 millimeters of toe out all around. If you have something to set up caster as well, you may increase caster a little bit. I don't know if that transforms the performance of the car dramatically, but yeah. It's a common mistake to think when you have toe out at the front, it makes the car better for turning in. It's exactly the opposite, because if the car looks like this and the front wheels look out, what makes the car turn is the outer wheel. So if you go on the right, the left wheel is gonna decide how fast you get into the corner. So if you have toe in and you want to go left or right, the outer wheel is already turning in that direction. So you have faster turn in. If you have toe out, the outer wheel needs to turn more to get into the corner. So you don't have that snappy turn in. I really like that on the road and even on the track as well. But some like it more direct, so then you need to have toe in at the front. Toe out at the rear, just to say it easy, toe out at the rear makes the wheelbase shorter. It makes it feel like it's shorter. Toe in makes the wheelbase longer, and toe out makes it shorter. Or at least it feels that way. Obviously it doesn't make the wheelbase shorter or longer, but it just feels that way. So yeah, that's what I would recommend, toe and camber. Then the best exhaust. I don't think there's the best exhaust. I have the one from Garage with bits, just a 3-inch all the way to the back. We will gonna have a different downpipe, and it does sound really nice, but it's obviously quite loud. and you can't drive that on the road. So if you want to drive it on the road and you need to have something street legal, the Inox car fits very well. At least in Switzerland, that's street legal. It fits very well. It does sound okay. It's still a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder engine, so it's not that big. It won't sound like a V8, obviously, but I think it does sound very nice. The Miltech does sound very nice, and yeah, the Miltech doesn't fit very well. At least the center silencer doesn't fit very well. You need to mount it in a very specific order, and you need to have everything a little bit under tension. Then you get enough clearance to the drive shaft, to the prop shaft, I think. But it does sound nice, and it does look nice. So these are the ones I would recommend. If you live in a country where there's no street regulations, go for whatever you like. I heard Öhlins made a very nice one. I haven't seen one so far, but maybe in the future I'm gonna see one, so maybe I can talk to you about it then. Then, does the radar need recalibration after unplugging? No, it does not. If you remove the front bumper, you need to unplug the front radar, and it doesn't need recalibration. You just plug it back in, that's it. How does a car shoot flames? Yeah, obviously if you remove the OPF, the GPF, and all the cats or the cat, and you need to have straight through silencers, then the car starts shooting flames. I don't know if it does in stock trim, but with a stock map or just a stage 1 map, it already starts shooting flames under certain conditions when it gets really hot, but that's just happening on the racetrack and most likely not on the road. But you need to have a full empty exhaust, which isn't quite usable on the road, because I'm still pro cat. If you're gonna drive it on the road, please use a cat. It's just, yeah, bad for everyone around you if you don't have one. On the track, that's just power, and so you don't need a cat. The HJS Downpipe installation, is that easy? This depends on what is easy for you. We install, I don't know, 20, 25 maybe of these downpipes, and right now we're pretty fast with it. You get, for the first time, maybe 3.5, 4 hours, something like that. But it's easy, yeah. It's not very complicated. You need to know how to get it out, because you need to do some certain steps. You need to remove the heat shield around the downpipe, the original downpipe, before you can take it out. Otherwise, it just doesn't fit. And you need to remove the heat shield when it's still mounted to the car. This will work now very well, because the bolts aren't that old. In 2 or 3 years, when the bolts are rusted shut, or when the bolts are rusted in and don't get loose that easy, then it's gonna be tricky to remove it. But for now, it's quite easy. But you need a lift, obviously. What tire size is recommended for street and track? This, I think, is one of the most common asked questions, and maybe it's an unpopular opinion I have, but I think 2 things. First of all, don't install 255s, 265s on the road. Don't. It kills the handling. The car will have so much grip, all the playful handling is gone. You just have plain understeer, unless you drive it so fast on the road that it's certainly not street legal and certainly not safe anymore. So, in my opinion, just use 225s, 235s for the road. And I'm a very strong advocate for not use semi-slicks on the road. I know some people use it. I know I will maybe get some hate for that, but I think semi-slicks don't belong on the road, because first of all, you don't get them up to temperature unless it's 35 degrees outside and you drive like a maniac. That's the first thing. So you don't get them up to temperature. And when you drive through a town, it is 50, you drive 50 kph, and a child is running in front of your car, maybe you could have stopped with stock or with normal summer tires. Because when semi-slicks are cold, you have a much longer braking distance, and so maybe you could have stopped, maybe not, but the chances increase when you have normal summer tires. So I recommend 225, 235 normal summer tires, the Michelin PS4S, these are very good, or the Goodyear Super Sport, these are also very nice on the road, and they give you plenty of grip, and your car still drives normally. So I would recommend 8, 8.5, maybe even 9, but I would stick to 8.5 inch wheels, maybe ET of 35, 32. For me, the perfect setup is 8.5 by 18, ET 32 or 30 maybe even, but not below 30, and 225 or 235 wheels. That's the perfect setup for me for the road. If you're going to the track, it's a totally different story. Then you're gonna need bigger tires, 9.5 inch wheels, 225, 265, and then you need to set up camber just perfectly well, so it doesn't touch the fender, it doesn't touch the damper. At least at the front, it's a big thing. So just make sure everything fits very nicely and nothing touches something. How is the Öhlins compared to the KW or the V3 or the Club Sport? I think the Öhlins is on the same level or even above the Club Sport. I'm a huge fan of Öhlins and not that much of KW, but the KW works perfectly well on the road. The KW V3 is perfectly nice on the road. It's comfortable enough. It gives you also the option to go to the track for a day or two. But if you go frequently to the track by the Öhlins, it's just the better of these two. And I think it's also better than the Club Sport, but people have different opinions. That's perfectly fine. I just like the Öhlins better. So they ask for my opinion. And it's not that my opinions are fact, it's just my opinion. And I'm a fan of Öhlins, so that's why I recommend Öhlins. Even if you drive on the road, the Öhlins will be absolutely perfect for you. It's expensive, I know, it's really expensive, but I think it's worth the money. I installed also a Nitron and still Öhlins. Yeah, what wheels fit best? I think that's also the same or nearly the same question as the last one with what would I recommend. I made a chart. I'm gonna show that chart to you right now, what I recommend. So, but that's just my recommendation. So yeah, don't drive really big wheels on the road. It's gonna kill the playfulness of the car. Which intercooler I recommend? I recommend the stock one. If you drive the stock car or even with stage 1, keep the stock intercooler. It's perfectly fine. If you run much more power, then maybe the Plasma Man, that's the one we're using, maybe the Wagner, that's also a good one. And we're also gonna bring one to the table in a couple of weeks, maybe month. So maybe you wanna buy ours, I don't know. We'll see how good that performs. I think it will perform quite nicely. So, but if you drive the car on the road and or with not that frequently on track days, keep to the stock intercooler. Then, is an oil cooler necessary? That depends. If you drive the car on the road, you don't need an additional oil cooler. It's just perfectly fine as it is from the factory. If you drive the car on track, I think it's highly recommended, or I recommend it very much. I highly recommend an oil cooler for if you're going to the track, because it just makes a lot of sense. I don't like to have oil temperatures above 120 degrees, so that's why I need an oil cooler. And with ours, it's just below 110, I think, 107, 108. And if you buy an oil cooler, make sure it's a plug and play fitment, that you don't need to cut anything. And you need one who has a thermostat as well, because you want to heat up the oil quite quickly to 80, 90 degrees and then keep it at that level and not go over 120 degrees. So you need a thermostat which closes or which cuts the oil cooler from the cooling circle until the oil reaches a certain point. So if you get one, make sure it's big enough and make sure it has a thermostat with it. Yeah, that's it for this video. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer, just write them in the comments and I will answer them next week or next month. Depends on how many questions there are. If there are coming quite frequent, I will make a video more frequent. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.